Hi, it's Jenny. Um, so in this video, I'm going to talk about some books I read in 2024, and I'm not going to rank them. And oh yeah, Boomer's here. Boomer, she's an old lady. She's about 12 years old. I know she's really a tiny cat, so she seems like she's like a little kitten, but she's just like she's very small and petite, but she's really an old lady. Um, yeah. Anyway, but all right, I'm gonna talk about some books I read in 2024. I already filmed this video once, and I thought I was being way too negative, so I'm gonna I'm gonna try this again. I don't know if it's gonna work out. The other thing that I was unhappy about is I think I talked about too many books, so I'm going to talk about not so many in this one. And um some thoughts about 2024. Yeah, so I was feeling really bad because I only read 30 books in 2024, and I felt like that was not very much, but I mean, the first 6 months of 2024, I was undergoing cancer treatment, and that left me feeling really tired, and reading was really tough. And yeah, but also a lot of 2024 was spent reading a lot of like fluffy fantasy stuff because I just wanted to make myself feel good. So I was like, maybe I shouldn't go over all those books because I don't know, it might not be that interesting. The other theme of 2024 was me realizing how much my trauma affects my reading, and either in good ways and bad ways. And yeah, and then thinking back on it, I realized that there was some DNFing going on because of trauma, and um, yeah, that really makes me I get really sad about that because I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's like when you go to a party and every single person at the party is just having like the most fun time ever, and you're just sitting in a corner and you're like, I'm having the worst time I've ever had in my entire life, and you're looking at everybody and you're like, I don't understand why they're so happy. And yeah, and that feeling like why can't I enjoy this like other people enjoy it? Like what's wrong with me? I'm a freak. And I don't know, I shouldn't really dwell on that, but yeah, uh, it was interesting how trauma um impacted like everything I read, and I guess that's going to be a theme going forward, and I have to discuss that and whatever, because it's just yeah, it's interesting. um so I guess yeah, so none of these books are ranked in like, and these are all going to be like positive things. um there was a book that I read in 2024 that was the worst book I ever read in my entire life, but I don't want to mention it, and I don't want to go over it because a lot of people love that book. And I guess I'm afraid of losing followers or something. So I chickened out, and I don't want to talk about it. I mean, if you want to know what the worst book I ever read in my entire life, maybe we could talk about it somewhere else, not on YouTube, or I don't know. Um, but yeah, like I'm chickening out. I'm too afraid to say my opinions about that. But again, the reason I hate that book so much is has to do with trauma. Because everything that other people read that book and was like, oh, it's just fun. When I read it from my point of view, it's like, no, this is rape, this is sexual abuse, this is traumatic, this is horrible, this is the worst thing ever. And I can't wrap my mind around like why other people aren't seeing that in the text. Like other people are reading it and they're like, oh, it's just, it's sexy, it's fun, it's a romp. And I don't, I can't, like my brain is not able, like my brain is broken, I guess, and it's not able to experience what everybody else experiences, I guess. Um, I mean, I don't know. I feel bad about that sometimes, but I just, it was the worst book I ever read in my entire life. And then, oh, wait, so, and then there was another book that I was enjoying, but I had the DNF. I feel bad about that book too. I guess I should talk about that and just unload about that. It was Against the Day by Thomas Pynchon. And everything that was going on in the book that wasn't related to sex, like I loved and I was really having a good time with it. But every time he had some sex stuff happen, it like I just couldn't, like it started out just being a little bit creepy and then just kept getting worse, and then there was like more like combinations of violence and sex, and it just like I couldn't continue anymore. My tolerance level, it's just like I can't, I don't know. Um and Yeah, and now I'm just like unable to read Thomas Pynchon, I guess. Um just like too freaked out. But yeah, so lessons I'm learning about trauma is that like really like some things that other people might read and it just like kind of like rolls off them. Like it just doesn't, like for me it enters into some kind of like deep space that's like it's so hard to explain. It's just like it goes somewhere that's just not good. And then it's like my brain just like frizzes goes into like this fritz mode, and it's like the whole like everything becomes scary, and then I'm like I can't, no. um but yeah, and then there but I also want to discuss, because there was a lot of books I read this year where there was rape and sexual abuse in it, but I did not have that experience of becoming so sick that I couldn't finish it. Like it was actually like good, like well, not good, like it's still difficult to read, but the way it was written, um, was brilliant, and deeply resonated with me. And anyway, so I'm gonna get into all that. So it's like trauma, like my trauma, like made some works of literature like extremely brilliant to me, even though it was about like the thing that's traumatic to me. And then other works of literature, like the way the writer either approaches it or whatever, it just completely destroys everything. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm gonna get into that, and I hope this isn't a super long video. So let's just start out. Okay, I'm gonna start out with. I'm just gonna say, oh yeah, Piranesi. I read this year and absolutely loved it. Um, so this, what I want to say about this is, if you haven't read this book yet, um, I think you should. And also, one of the things my sister said to me, like my sister recommended this book, and I had just read something that I thought was horrible, and then I read this book, and I was like, oh, this was so amazing. And I texted her, I was like I just had like the best reading experience ever. And she said to me, everyone that she's recommended this book to who has experienced stuff in their life, like, trauma and other difficult things, like they have loved this book and it has really resonated with them. And I was like, yes, you were so right. So, so yeah, if you've experienced trauma, this may resonate with you. And I think I know probably a lot of booktubers talk about this book, but what I'm going to say is, the main character, he is immediately so lovable, and he's so lost, and he's so confused, and he doesn't know what's going on, and he's so lovable, and you were immediately like just drawn to want to protect him and help him, and you're just like, I just want him to make it through this. And because he's so damaged, and this is about trauma, this book, but it's also just beautifully written, and it just pulls you right in. So if you don't know about this book, I'm just going to read you like the first, like, this is like the beginning of the book. It says, when the moon rose in the third northern hall, I went to the ninth vestibule. Entry for the first day of the 5th month in the year, the albatross came to the southern western halls. When the moon rose in the third northern hall, I went to the ninth vestibule to witness the joining of 3 tides. This is something that happens only once every 8 years. So first off, you're just like, what in the hell is going on? And it's like the mystery of it, of like slowly trying to figure out and piece together what's going on, is just wonderful. Anyway, it just hooks you, and it's great. And I love like how weird it was. It's really weird. Some people don't like it for being weird, but I love it for being weird. Yeah. Another really great time I had with this is The Luck of Brin's 5 by Cherry Wilder. And look at this cover. This is some old school vintage cover going on here. This is from like the 70s, I think. Look how cool that is. That's like someone did a real painting and then they made that the cover. People don't do that anymore. Everyone just does like some weird graphic design stuff that looks like garbage. And put real paintings on book covers, like actual. This is from 1977. Yeah, this is a trilogy, but it's all out of print and it's hard to find. I gotta find the rest of the books. Oh, okay, so I have to summarize. So, this is like a steampunk fantasy sci-fi. It takes place on an alien planet. It's like a happy family and a very weird, different alien culture from ours. And the narrator is a teenage boy alien, and it's just, there's some really beautiful, moving stuff in this book, and it's also really fun, and it's just like adorable sometimes. Yeah, this really like brought me out of like when I was feeling like, not good this year. Reading this was like, oh, this is so cool. Yeah, and I really enjoyed this. And yeah. What's that? Okay, I'm gonna move on to next. I gotta move on. I gotta move quickly, get through these books. So I read the Parable of the Talents. I had read the Parable of the Sower the previous year, and this is a sequel by Octavia Butler. And right, if you don't know about these books, they're very harsh. And yeah, there's a lot of rape in it, really horrible atrocities happening to people. It's a sci-fi, a dystopian. It's very scary. The predictions, the sorry, the predictions that Octavia made about Christian America, the far right, super scary. But yeah, so there's a lot of really, difficult things with rape and sexual abuse in these 2 books. And yeah, it's like difficult to read, it's uncomfortable, you feel bad. But I'm never like traumatized by it. Like I don't have the same reaction that I have when other writers, like, so some writers, they just add like a rape scene into a book because I feel like they just want to be edgy and cool. Whereas in this book, it's not there to be edgy and cool. It's like this is essential to the story. Like it's showing like what could possibly happen in this like extreme situation where everything goes to hell. And it's very realistic and it's really horrible, but it doesn't like mess me up, like it, because like why is it that this is like can someone explain it to me? I don't know if I'm understand like it just I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, I mean I think these two books are really good sci-fi books. What I'm gonna talk about next. Um yeah, The Changeling Sea by Patricia A. McKillip. So I had read this when I was like 15, and I was like, oh, I want to reread it. And yeah, it's absolutely adorable. It's like a Studio Ghibli. I'm not sure how you say that. Studio Ghibli. It's like a Studio Ghibli film where all the characters are like the most adorable characters you could ever imagine. Um, and it's just magical. And there's a sea dragon, and it's also really sad, but it's beautifully written. And why this should be a Studio Ghibli film. It would be so beautiful. Um, and yeah, I think Patricia A. McKillip is like an underrated fantasy writer. And if you want to get into some beautiful fantasy stuff, you should check her out. This is from 1988. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's just beautiful. And okay, so moving on. An author that I got heavily into in 2024 was Robin McKinley. Um, I read a bunch of her books. Okay, so these two are a series that goes together: Blue Sword and The Hero and the Crown. So Robin McKinley is another underrated woman fantasy author. I think more people need to check her out. So she writes the most awesome female protagonists I have ever read in any fantasy books ever. It's not that they're just badass. They're not like an annoying tough girl like tropes. They're they are just cool. They are resilient. They're intelligent. They do use all the resources they can to get out of their situations, but it's also like done. It's also written very realistically, where you see like you see her mess up and make mistakes, but learn from her mistakes and then slowly get better. And it's like the female the female protagonist that like if these books are like YA and for like teenage girls, like this is what they need to read. They need to read like something where, okay, realistically, like a girl learning how to ride horses and fight from a horse and all that stuff. Like realistically, like you feel like that's something I could never learn how to do, right? But like this kind of makes you kind of believe like, well, yeah, maybe you could in a situation like this figure it out. Yeah, you're gonna mess up, you're gonna get injured, you're gonna get hurt, it's gonna be rough, it's gonna be tough. But you just keep going and you can learn to fight and be a badass and yeah. And then the hero and the crown. There is a um dragon battle thing in this book that is the most coolest dragon battle like scene I have ever read in my entire life. I mean, I have read a lot of fantasy, but like this is the best. It's written almost like a war scene. Like it reminds me of like I haven't really read a lot of like war books, but it felt like a war book, and just like the build up to like getting closer to where the dragon is, like the ominous feeling in the air, like that it just it built it built up the tension, and it was so like horrific and brutal, and it's just like it's so good. And this is just like a YA book, but it's like it was brutal. Like, whoa. Anyway, so Robin McKinley, she does wonderful female protagonists, and she also has, the love interests, the men in the stories. They're always really good. They're not abusive. They're they're just like they're wonderful. I'm gonna let me talk about some more of her books. Um, Sunshine. So this book is a vampire book. It came out the year before Twilight came out. I've never read Twilight, but I understand that Twilight is something that I would really, really not like, and I would really, really hate. I've read enough about the whole premise of Twilight and the plot of Twilight to know that that's something that's not for me, and I would hate that. But that became like super popular and a film and all that. This came out a year before that and is not as famous. However, I feel like this is what people should read. I think you should not read Twilight and you should read Sunshine because this is I this was really fun. Yeah, it's a vampire book and it's kind of like an urban fantasy, I guess. But yeah, you got a strong female protagonist. She's not like some weak, wimpy virgin girl. That's not her character at all. And then you got like, this kind of creepy vampire guy. But he's also very, very sensitive and sad. And yeah, like the male heroes or whatever, they're not like the typical male heroes in a lot of books. They're not like just they're they're usually very sad and depressed and they got emotions and it's not just like tough guy with muscles. There's depth to them and yeah, and you just want to give them a hug. You just want to give the vampire a hug. um yeah, so I think that's good writing when you want to give the vampire a hug. um don't you just want to hug vampires sometimes? I think about that and I think it'd be good. Right. So she did two versions of Beauty and the Beast. I like them both. And again, she's got strong female characters. And then the Beast, so the Beast in her books, it's not like he's really sad and he's really depressed about being the Beast. He doesn't want to be the Beast. You know, it's like the Beast is like masculinity and he's trapped inside his masculinity and he just wants to pet animals, but the animals are all scared of him because he's the beast. And he's just like crying, and he's really really sad, and it's like a symbol of how toxic masculinity hurts men because they can't experience everything in the world that they should be allowed to experience because of you know toxic masculinity. And so so yeah, it's not like this beast that's going around ripping people up and ooh, he's real strong and muscular. Like no, this is a beast that he wants to get freed from being a beast because he wants to become a human, and that's all he wants. And that makes him more human than just about anybody because he's so emo. And isn't that beautiful? Why don't we celebrate men for being emo? It's a beautiful thing to be a man and be emo. Um, okay. Deerskin. So yes, this book has rape in it. It's a retelling of a very disturbing fairy tale. And I don't know if I want to say too much about it without giving it away, but it keeps you inside the head of, the protagonist after the trauma, going through all the pain and suffering and what it does to your brain, and then moves you into healing. And it's just beautiful, and it's just such a realistic portrayal of what happens to your brain when you've experienced that. Resonated with me so deeply. Like I feel like this book was actually written for me. Like no one has written about rape in such a beautiful way as this book does. Right. So then I'm gonna talk about Garth Nix and his series, the Sabriel series. I read the whole series. There's a whole bunch of books. I can't hold them all up. or the Abhorsen. It's called the Abhorsen Series. All these books. Where's the first one? See, okay, so this is like the third one in the series. This is like a criminally underrated fantasy series. Um, why do I like this series so much? So there's no sex in it at all, which I find wonderful. I'm tired of all this sex stuff. Um, but the romance in it is so adorable. So adorable. So when I think about romance, what I want is there to be one kiss and a little bit of hand holding, and that's it. To me, that's romance. Now I'm starting to figure out that the rest of the world, when you say like romance books, they're thinking about something that I'm not thinking about, and that's why I never read romance books, but I'm guessing that's why I wouldn't like them, because it's not about one kiss and a little bit of hand holding. Yeah. Anyway, so the Garth Nix series, Abhorsen, Sabriel. Sabriel is the first book. The fantasy stuff is really awesome and badass. About necromancy. Um, Main character. Uh, there's these different bells that they ring, and that like transports them into different gates of hell. There's like nine gates of hell, nine gates that you have to pass through. Um, I'm not explaining this well. It's been a while since I read them. Nine gates that lead you towards death. So yeah, I mean, there's kind of a gothic tone to it. Um, it's very cool. The fantasy is just awesome. It's really fun. And then there's like this totally adorable romance going on. Um, I see people reviewing it saying they hate the romance because it's not spicy enough or whatever. Like, why do you need spice? Like, why can't they just, you know, kiss once and then hold hands for a little bit? Like that's all you need. That's all I need. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm floored with that. Holding hands and one little kiss. To me, that's beautiful. Why do you need anything else? I mean, if you can't find that beautiful, like, I don't know, I think your brain is like just like oversaturated. You need to like tone it down and just see the beauty in like simple simple expressions of emotion. I don't know. The Old Nurse's Story by Elizabeth Gaskell. I was very surprised. This was very, very feminist. Very, very feminist. There's definitely a anti-patriarchy theme to this, and I'm looking forward to reading more Elizabeth Gaskell. So I just want to mention that. Really cool. Mention that real quickly. Um, okay, so Alex DeFrancesco's Breaking the Curse. I need to talk about this. So, a lot of the events in this book happened while I was following the author on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter anymore. And yeah, so I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but one of the main premises of this memoir is about how the author wrote a story about a rape that had happened to them, and then they get sued by the rapist for having written it. And this also goes into like their childhood and leading up to that, and then everything happens after that. And while this whole like lawsuit thing was going on, that's why I was following the author on Twitter, and just like I got so emotionally wrapped up in it. It was so horrifying for me to like see what was happening to them. And so I'm talking too much about myself. I got to talk about Alex. This is a really difficult read. And again, I knew what a lot of the stuff that was going to be in there, so I prepared myself. The rape's in there. There's also a lot of some gratuitous sex stuff, and it's very, like I was saying before, I don't want to read any more about sex. So yeah, it's like, it was close to like getting onto a level where I don't know if I could tolerate it, but I did tolerate it, and I got through it. And everything that's in there has to be in there in order to tell a story, is basically it. So you can't censor it and take out the things. Like it's just, even though it made me uncomfortable some parts, that's just me and my trauma, and I know that, but it's absolutely necessary to the story, for the story being told. So um yeah, this is a heart-wrenching book, and so I'm not going to say anything else about it. So I'm just going to move on to, what else did I say? Always Running by Luis J. Rodriguez. And sort of similar to Breaking the Curse, this is a very, very difficult read. There's a lot of stuff in it. There is some mention of rape and sexual abuse in this. Again, very difficult and uncomfortable for me to read. There's also a lot of violence, and but all the stuff that's in there has to be in there in order for the story to be told. It's not somebody trying to be an edgelord. It's not like it's all from, reality. Well, it's a memoir, so it's from reality, so it has to be in there in order to understand the story. And that's why it's beautiful. And it's very, very honest. It's the most honest thing I've ever read. And yeah, one of the highlights of 2024. So what else? Okay, this could be a really long video, and it's too long. Thank you for staying to the end of that, and I hope you have good reading in 2025. And please like, comment, and subscribe. And just have a happy new year. And I hope I didn't offend anybody with anything that I said about any of these books. All right. Goodbye.